Hello again. Welcome to Southeastern Conference Basketball Power Rankings Live Edition. I think this might be the first time we've ever done these live. I'm your host, Chris Lee, joined by my co-hosts Max Barr and Blake Lovell. Boys, we watched a lot of basketball last week, got a lot more coming up. Power Rankings is going to be interesting this morning. We had some very interesting discrepancies. With that, I'll just turn it over to Blake to jump right into these.
Max, you are the master of ceremonies here, number 16, South Carolina. So, thoughts on the Gamecocks who have stayed here yet again?
Yeah, I have in my notes, I just have what is going on with Cam Scott. That's all I've got. I mean, we were talking about this guy potentially being all freshman team, not necessarily because he was more talented than the other freshmen, but just because we knew that this team would need him in that guard spot. 6'6", lengthy, fits that Lamont Paris nasty defense. He just has not gotten going yet. So, I don't know. Wait and see.
Next up, we have Oklahoma, which I feel like has been here for a couple of weeks now.
They have. I think we just still don't know what to make of Oklahoma. I mean, they've actually, too, like number of games-wise. I'm trying to look. I mean, Auburn's only played 4. Yeah, I mean, so they're on the lower end of how many games they played. So they've only played 4 games, and they really haven't played anyone of note. And so Lindenwood, Northwestern State, Texas, and East Texas A&M. I mean, what do we possibly take away from that so far? They're going to play Providence on Wednesday. That's the first time we actually see Oklahoma against, a team that's also has not really played a lot of anybody to this point. So, I think this will be interesting to kind of see where we go from here with Oklahoma. But right now, we just don't have a lot to go off of. And quite honestly, their non-conference schedule, there is not a lot there in terms of like, what do we really learn about them before their first SEC game, which happens to be on the road at Alabama, coming up on January 4th. So,
yeah, speaking to the schedule, that's 3 of the 4 teams Oklahoma has played are bottom 25 KenPom teams. So you will see some discrepancies in these rankings later based on some of us maybe weighing what we're seeing. Are they beating good teams or not? Because we're still really early. But I think that played a factor in Oklahoma being where it was. Number 14, Max Barr.
We have the Commodores. I think they had a fantastic week. Chris, we normally bounce around, but I'm just going to throw this right back to you for the Commodores.
Yeah, they had 2 nice wins over Seton Hall in Nevada. Last night looked horrible. I think a lot of that had to do with Drake, which I think is going to be really good. I've heard people talk about Drake, and you watch Drake play. And Ben McCollum is an incredibly good coach. But some weaknesses got exposed for them last night. McLaughlin got in foul trouble, or actually didn't get in foul trouble. I think got hurt. They had no post presence inside. I think Vanderbilt, some of its weaknesses got exposed last night, and we'll see how that team responds going forward.
All right. Well, hold on a second before we move to 13, because Robert's saying I absolutely jinxed Vandy's season. Shane decides he's going to agree with him as well. Folks, let's recall the tape here. I said if Vanderbilt beats Drake, I said that was the caveat. They had to beat Drake to get the undefeated 17-0 start to the season. They didn't do that, so I didn't jinx their season at all. They had to do the first thing that I said they had to do to be able to take care of business. So I am not, come on, Sam, look at this. Can we get Sam out of here? Put him in a timeout.
Nice.
But nonetheless, I voted Vanderbilt higher than both of you this week, and I think this is too low. But let's move on.
Before we move on, BetOnline is your world's most trusted betting platform and your number 1 source for online betting. From the earliest odds to in-game live betting, BetOnline provides you with all the action and the ability to watch the games as they happen. With the largest selection of odds on everything from football, NBA, and college basketball, NHL to UFC and MMA, head to BetOnline today to get in on the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering. BetOnline, the game starts here. Number 13, Max Barr.
Got The Tigers, Missouri, 13. I feel like is a little low, but they haven't really played anyone the past few weeks. So Caleb Grill has the quietest 55% start from three in college basketball history. The guy is 21 of 38 from three, and no one's talking about him. Guess what? We are. We see a Caleb Grill. Tony Perkins back, played 13 minutes. Same with Aiden Shaw, also back. He played about 15 minutes. So expect to see them get those minutes ramped up as they get back from injury.
Missouri has put up 111, 91, and 112 in their past 3 games. An unbelievable run for the Tigers, who are on a 5-game winning streak. Up next, Lindenwood on Wednesday.
Without Tony Perkins last time out.
Well, he just came back.
Oh, he did.
Past
Okay,
game.
never mind.
Yeah,
okay.
just came back. Yeah.
Without Tony Perkins 2 times ago.
Yes, there you go.
And we're all aware of what they did to Mississippi Valley State.
Okay, let's continue on. Chris is
There we go.
mocking the Delta Devils again. Now, here we go. We're going to take a bit of a
Matt McMahon.
We're going to take a bit of a stop here.
Here we go.
For 1 second, because LSU is at 12. Now, I'm very curious what people are going to think of this ranking. However, I want you to consider in your minds, what if it's like the ESPN 30 for 30 lead-in? What if I told you that LSU was the 8th best team in the SEC? Would you believe it? Chris,
Yes.
What about you?
Your Honor.
Oh, good Lord.
Oh, okay. Here we go.
Is a leading stat guy in the conversation.
Oh,
You know what? Also,
are we
I have,
about
I
to
have
rank
2
teams
eyeballs.
by defensive
I have 2
efficiency?
eyeballs. I watched some basketball. I saw LSU come down from 20 points in a ballroom. You know, where can these guys play? Can LSU win on the road? Yes. Can LSU win at home? Yes. Can LSU win in a random ballroom in the middle of nowhere, West Virginia? Yes. That counts for something here. Cam Coleman, this team has got they were down 20. Cam Carter, excuse me, not the Auburn wide receiver. I've got the yips on that name. I really do. That's going to get me a bunch this year. Anyway, down 20 to UCF, they come back and win. Look, this is a landscape where you've got some teams that haven't played anybody yet. Maybe Kansas State isn't as good as we thought. UCF's good enough to have beaten Texas A&M already. The Pitt game in there in between, not great. Did I rank LSU too high? Probably. But I like some things they're doing.
We're just messing with you.
Yeah,
I don't.
Let's hear your take.
No, we're just messing with you. I think this is really hard. LSU and another team we're going to talk about in a second are 2 of the hardest teams, I think, to rank this week, because when you look at it, yes, they have the triple overtime thriller in the ballroom against UCF, but they also, again, won on the road against Kansas State, which also just lost yesterday to Liberty, which I have nothing against Liberty, but that's also, we said, Kansas State I just don't think is that good of a team right now. So it's a power conference road win, but what is Kansas State? I don't know. So we'll see. LSU didn't do they were fine against Pitt. We knew it'd be a tough game. They lost, but yeah, I'm still higher on LSU than I was entering the season. I'm just curious how far do we move them up so far, and that's, again, like, what are these? We're doing this. The best conference in college basketball is sitting right in front of us. The SEC is the best conference out there. I don't think there's much of a debate right now. When you consider the body of work through, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever. Now this week it'll be tested because you're having a lot tougher competition. Yeah. It's about to step up considerably. But at least to this point, when you rank these teams, you got to rank them somewhere. And that's where, like, even Missouri fans are probably thinking, my goodness, we're the 13th best team. We've been reeling off 50-point wins left and right. Vanderbilt, 14. Are you kidding me? Look at what we just did in Charleston. So I get it. And so LSU was an outlier in terms of our individual rankings this week. Chris had them considerably higher than everyone else. I'm higher on them than I was a couple weeks ago. Victorious Miller, defining victory for the Tigers right now. But here they are. And so...
Well, also, before we move on from real quick, the Damian Collins injury is really big. I think he might be out for the year with that re-injury in that same shoulder. And Matt McMahon was really excited about him this year. So that's something to monitor. And they also trailed to Charleston Southern by 5 in the second half and Alabama State by 10 in the second half. So they've looked good and also not looked good at times.
I think the issue we're having, we're in the midst of a pack of a lot of teams we think are pretty good.
Yeah.
But the body of accomplishment so far, you're with a lot of teams we think are good that are just beating up on nobodies. And so to me, when a team does something of consequence, you maybe bump them up a couple of spots. And I think that's going to account for a lot of our differences is how we lean on that. But anyway, number 11, Max Barr.
Yes, we have the Rebels, Chris Beard, and Ole Miss. Blake, quick thoughts?
I think they were pretty tough to rank too. And it's like, here's also the thing. How many SEC teams are completely out of the NCAA tournament picture 6 games in, 5 games in? I feel like in previous seasons, we looked at some of these teams and are like, yikes, there is no chance that any of these teams have to make the tournament. I'm not talking about Ole Miss, but like if you keep going further down the line, the teams we just mentioned, right? So if Ole Miss is the 11th best team in our power rankings this week, and most seem to look at and think they're a top 25 team. Holy cow. What does that say about the state of the SEC? Ole Miss, I think, same kind of scenario. It's who have they beaten so far? If we're doing rankings, who have they beaten? Colorado State's their best win. Beyond that, there's not a lot yet. But competition, you're going to notice a theme here. Steps up, starting Thursday. BYU begins. And so next week's rankings, you will see the biggest change in terms of where these teams are at, because this week everyone's done their thing now, and Ole Miss is one of them. They've taken care of their business against teams they should have taken care of their business against. But now we see how they start to play and what are going to be closer games. And so, is there anything to really be upset about with Ole Miss so far? No, not at all. But they just happen to fall at number 11 this week. So,
and also, Blake, in that BYU game, that's a perfect game for us to learn about Ole Miss, because what's like the knock on them is like they can't, play against size and stuff like that. And that's exactly what BYU is going to present. So that's going to be a perfect game to see where Ole Miss is at.
Yeah, and so far, almost got beat by Grambling, looked very underwhelming against South Alabama. I watched a lot of that game. They did have a couple of guys out, Morrell out for the whole game, and then they had another key injury late in the game. I can't remember. So that's part of it, I think. But they've been better in the 2 games since, so we'll see where it goes, because the next 2 will be the best 2 they've played so far.
Yep. Number 10, the Georgia Bulldogs and Mike White get the win of the week, knocking off St. John's on Sunday in the standalone power conference game. Come on. Chris, how do you like the Bulldogs so far?
Well, I love the way they played down the stretch. Blue Cane fouls out. Asa Newell goes to the bench with 4 fouls. Georgia was up, 5 or 6 points, and then the game flipped immediately. They got him back in. They held on. Georgia's got some issues. We talked about ball handling. I don't know that they've got a primary ball handler on par with the rest of a lot of these teams in the league. But, man, they've got a big guy that I think Newell could be about as good as we see in the league. And for all their – I'm not going to say faults with their guards, because that's not their guards. It's not the most talented bunch of guards in the league, but it is a deep and experienced bunch. I just think that they've got parts – they've got a thing that most people don't have. And I think getting that win against St. John's in the midst of some adversity to me was kind of loud.
The best non-conference win of the Mike White era so far, and I think that's always a good thing, because it means you're trending in the right direction. And, that was the one game we needed to kind of see what Georgia would do after Marquette lost. They bounced back with a win. Good win against the Fighting Ricky Peas, and now they march on with, I think, a great chance to maybe run through the rest of the non-conference schedule with a couple other, solid wins. But, yeah, that was a big one, we said, because these were going to be the 2 big games on their non-conference schedule. They split them. I think that's all you can ask for in that kind of scenario. So, Georgia trending up as well. My goodness, how many teams in the SEC trending up right now? Incredible.
Moving on to number 9.
Oh, boy.
Oh,
I'm sitting this one out.
boy.
I'm going to turn this one over to whoever else wants to speak. I'm
Well,
sitting this one out. So
I'll
there
just
was.
own it.
You don't have to
Tee it
listen.
up,
You
Chris.
don't have to
Tee
say
it up.
where you ranked them. You don't have to tell us exactly where you put them. But you were far and away the low man on Arkansas this week, which I don't think you're going to be alone in that, just for what it's worth. I do not think you were going to be alone in that. If you asked 100 other people, maybe not in Fayetteville, maybe somewhere else, I think there are some people who would maybe have ranked them where you ranked them this week. But we will at least let you take the floor with what your thoughts are on the Hogs.
Well, Your Honor, it's like the scene in Liar, Liar.
The judge.
When there's a smell in the room and Jim Carrey is under a spell and he cannot lie, and he raises his hand and says, "It was me. It was me." And for full disclosure, when I sent you the voting, next to Arkansas, I think where I had them ranked, I also had the question mark incomplete, because I think that is a better grade for Arkansas. I don't think there needs to be a number next to Arkansas's name. It needs to be an incomplete, because what Arkansas team are we getting? Like, if it's the team with Jonas Adu and a healthy John L. Davis and a healthy Trevon Brazile, there's no way they're here. But that's not what they are, and we don't know when they're going to be that. I have lingering concerns about Davis and Adu. And I mean, look, guys, we're going on a month plus with these guys. I think there is some assumption they're going to be okay. I'm not assuming anything until I see it. And I'll also be honest. You're in a league of some phenomenal coaches, and give John Calipari his flowers for what he has done historically. But it has been a while since he has taken a team and made the parts into a whole that was better than the parts summed up, if that makes sense. So I have some questions. Could I be way wrong on them? Yes, and I hope I am. I hope they get everybody back. I hope they have the season we all thought they could have. But right now, they got issues, and it's not all their fault. It's bad luck. But you got a lot of really good teams here. And you take 3 or 4 Arkansas's better parts out of the equation, I'm not sure they're that much better than a lot of the teams around them.
I think it's as simple as this is the best league in college basketball, and this team has 3 key players injured. I think that's pretty much the end of my analysis on Arkansas right now. If you take who was number 10? Georgia. Take away Demery, Godfrey, and LaFew. I mean, then
it's worse than that.
Right, but I'm just saying, take away 3 key guys from any team in this range, and they slide down. I mean, they're snowballing down the rankings. So I think it's as simple as the best league, and you're all banged up.
Well, I will just say, you've all heard Chris's filibuster here on the Razorbacks. And in it, you heard, well, it's actually what you didn't hear. He has completely abandoned the defensive ranking system.
Oh, here we go.
Because had he not, the Hogs would be sitting right up there in the top 3 or 4 in the SEC. But he's abandoned it now. He's gotten rid of that idea. No more defensive rankings, which I fully support, by the way. You got to score points. Arkansas is struggling to score points consistently. But they're a top defensive team right now, even without Jonas Adu playing much at all. So if there is the optimism I will keep, is that if this guy gets back and is healthy, Brazile is going to help some there. Davis, I think Davis is going to help. Again, playing better, more minutes, more consistently. They could be pretty good defensively. But for now, I will acknowledge the evidence that you have sent to the system here, and we will consider it at a later date. But for now, there you go.
All right, moving on. Number 8, we've got Rodney Terry, RT and the Longhorns. Texas coming off of a scrappy one against a good St. Joe's squad, and also beat the Fighting Eddie Lampkins in Syracuse. What do you think of the week they just had there, Chris?
I think this is the default ranking.
Yep.
They just really haven't played much. I think we think they're good. I don't think the schedule has told us a lot. I mean, they have that loss to Ohio State. I don't have much to offer until we see them play better teams.
The thing with Texas is we're starting to get back T-Mark. Is that where you were going, Blake? I feel like you were going to say,
Yeah, I mean, they didn't have him against Ohio State. I'm not saying they would have won the game, but I think they had a great chance to win that game if they had him. But they haven't also been spectacular against Syracuse or St. Joe's. We mentioned that. I mean, consistency, I think, is what they're searching for.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't think it's been there. And, they'll beat Delaware State by however many on Friday. But then we said, like, Texas's whole non-conference, we mentioned that from after night one, was going to be defined by the two games in December in a span of 4 days at NC State, home against UConn. And that's where, the power rankings we have for December the 9th we'll know exactly where Texas stands because, they will have already played those two games the previous week, and that's where we'll have some real movement. Otherwise, I can't imagine they're going to move from this spot until then. So
I want to ask you guys, are you surprised that the two Indiana State transfers haven't had a little bigger role?
Well, Kent's been out.
Okay.
The stretch four has been out, Jason Kent.
Okay, I missed that. Thank you. That explains it then.
But Larry's been pretty solid. I mean, he's playing like 20 minutes a game. I don't think they have a true ball handler yet, just because they have so many different guards that can, create for themselves with Johnson, with Pope, now with Mark. Kendall Weaver is more of he's kind of more of like a PJ Tucker and a guard. He's not going to really shoot. He's just going to kind of do all the utility stuff. But the other guys, Larry, Pope, Trey Johnson, Tremont Mark, even Kaluma can handle the ball a little bit. So I don't really know who's that true point guard, PG1. Not sure.
Yeah, can't miss the last two games. I've being preoccupied with football over the weekend. I just missed that. But, I mean, even before then, he was playing 18, 19 minutes. I thought that might be closer to 25. But they got a lot of guys.
Ready to move on, number 7?
Mm-hmm.
The Aggies.
You're up.
Wow. What disrespect. No, this is actually where I voted him also. Not going to lie. The Aggies slept walk through the first half against Southern. That was their only game last week. Leaves a sour taste in the mouth, and they didn't, do anything over the weekend to make up for it. You had other teams in this area that we'll get to that had some pretty big marquee wins. So, I mean, right now, I think if you've watched the Aggies, if you watched, that UCF game to open, you watched Southern, maybe a little bit of Ohio State, I think this is pretty accurate. I think they're a middle-of-the-pack SEC team that has a really high ceiling and a really low floor. I think they can struggle against Southern, and then they play Oregon on Tuesday. They're a team that could beat Oregon by 20 points and dominate them, but then struggle against Southern. I think this is pretty accurate. I'm not sure. What do you guys think?
Well, I mean, they play Oregon and Creighton the next 2 days on Tuesday and Wednesday, and I think that's where we mentioned, like, A&M, because of the way their schedule falls and knowing they still have big games too. They'll have a third game in Vegas. Then they've got Texas Tech still, Purdue. They have a lot of opportunity here to basically do the opposite of what they've done in recent years, and that is go into conference play needing it to elevate their non-conference schedule, right? Needing to make up for some slips here or there. That's kind of been the knock on them, right? It seems like. And so I think now is a big chance to take advantage of that. And if they can, again, they started doing that. Remember, they got the big Iowa State win last year. That was kind of the defining one. I think it's where you pick up the Ohio State win. If you can get a couple wins here this week, and then, who knows, maybe grab one of those against Texas Tech or Purdue or something. Like, you're just sitting in such a better spot, especially after you gave away the first game. And who knows, maybe they should have played that game in a ballroom. They'd have beat UCF if it was played in a ballroom, but it wasn't. And so, I think the Aggies are fine. They just, again, if you're the 7th best team in the SEC, you're a top 20 team. And so it's as clear as that, I think. And so, but I will say this. For Max Barr this week, it had to be tough because it was like choosing between the two loves of his life. And so, yes, as noted in the comments here, it's happened. Hold on, where's Carlos? Oh, As Eli says, woo baby, my dogs moving way up. And Carlos said, oh, my Bulldogs moving up. Hopefully YouTube doesn't knock us for some sounds there. Sound a little rated, R or something. But my goodness.
What was that?
The Bulldogs. Well, look, I mean, the comments, you had
So
woo baby
flustered.
and oh.
Oh, got you. Okay.
I mean, my goodness. Lot of getting a little heat in here talking about the dogs. So, Mississippi State moving up to 6. Chris Jans. Unbelievable. Max, I got to sit back for a second. My goodness, these dogs moving on up the rankings.
My heart rate is going at an all-time fast rate right now. I mean, these are my two teams here, and they're both looking fantastic. But my goodness, this Mississippi State team. Now, these were my guys last year. I had them in the Final Four. Okay, I was very worried about this front court. I had my worries, but Keshawn Murphy called me up and said, Max, you are a freaking idiot because I'm breaking out this year. What a 2-game stretch for Keshawn Murphy. Guy's averaging a double-double right now against high major competition. Josh Hubbard, do you know who has the number 1 assist-to-turnover ratio in the country, which is 18 assists to 0 turnovers?
Oh, can I go?
18 assists.
Josh Hubbard. Is it Josh Hubbard?
Yes.
Oh, what a great answer.
How
Tremendous.
did you know?
I haven't even mentioned Cam Matthews. I haven't even mentioned Claudel Harris. I haven't even mentioned Riley Kugel.
Yeah, hey, if you watch that SMU game, they spotted SMU a double-digit lead quickly on the road against a good SMU team. And I watched some of that, and I watched the end of the Utah game, a week ago or whatever it was now. What happened, Max? Their guards kind of took over down the stretch. I mean, you mentioned Hubbard. Hubbard's not even – Kanye Clary was their primary ball handler down the stretch some of those games. Claudel Harris has played a lot of ball. Riley Kugel was their Ken Pom MVP the other night, a guy that was our wild card probably in the league last year. That translates to this year too. Back to the whole thing, you've got to give them credit for doing some things against good teams. I moved State up several spots just because I watched a lot of those games and saw what they did, and that's got to count, and I think it should.
Blake?
No,
Nothing on the Dogs?
No, I did. I flipped them. I had Mississippi State higher than Texas A&M, so I have no issue with this. So,
and it doesn't get any easier because they've got a solid neutral court game against UNLV, and then Pitt, who's becoming all too familiar with the SEC. So, got more opportunities. Number 5, moving up, the Gators. The Florida Gators.
Another team that I think is just sitting here saying, hey, we're just going out and taking care of our business right now. And that's exactly what they've done in every single game they played this year. But it's kind of that same scenario. Their best win is at Florida State. And so can you rank them above the other teams we have now in the top 4? It's hard, but, could we make an argument that Florida at its best could very well be, maybe I don't know. Like, can Florida have an argument to say, hey, if you give us some of these teams that you've been playing and maybe we go out and beat teams like that, I think they're capable of doing it. Elijah Martin has just been unbelievable. As we said, you combine him with Walter Clayton and Will Richard and what they're doing. Our guy, Tommy Houck there, just stepping up, making big plays in the front court. The Gators are chomping right now, and they're going to need to chomp a little bit harder because they're about to, see an increase, I think, in their competition. They play Wake Forest, and these tournament games we keep forgetting. You're going to have multiple games there. They still got Virginia. They should dominate Virginia. And they got the game against North Carolina on December 17th. But for now, big one here for the Gators, sitting here at number 5, and they look pretty good right now. So,
Blake, to touch on your question, I think it's hard to crack the top 4. And again, my question on Florida has been the depth. But are we feeling a little bit better about that? Because I feel like they're getting good minutes from their bench. It may not be names people know, like you get on some other teams, but I'm starting to think maybe. And plus, they got a lot of guards that can play a lot of minutes, so that sort of negates that a little bit. But I am wondering if the bench is a little better than we thought. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think this might be one of the most underrated backcourts in the nation. I'm not even joking. I mean, you don't see Walter Clayton, Elijah Martin, Will Richard, and Denzel Aberdeen off the bench. You don't see them getting much national attention for how good they are. Watch a Walter Clayton game. Watch that Elijah Martin second half from this past game. I mean, these guys do not get that much national attention. I know we give them their flowers because we're supposed to, and we know how good they are, but nationally, my gosh, these guys are, I mean, what are they in, Ken Palm? They're the 7th offense in the nation right now. The 7th offense. They don't get talked about like that. Anything left on the Gators?
Boy. And then,
or we move into the top 4.
Here comes, this is, again, this was not my idea to do this live. I appreciate all of you, but getting to the top 4, it's going to be chaos in the comments. So, all right.
Without further ado, number 4. The Crimson Tide of Alabama. This is movement from last week, is it not? I believe we had
they were at 4 last week.
They were at 4. Yes, they were at 4. Okay.
Because we made a swap in a couple other places. So,
yep.
All right. So here's the deal on Alabama, okay? And look, because they did get moved down last week, this is one of those where, hey, if the teams in front of you don't exactly, slip and fall, what do, right? Oh, this is, tremendous. Big Baller Brett. Part of the It Just Means More tier, so actually we're going to need to ask for more people to join the It Just Means More tier because Big Baller Brett is unsubscribing. So, yeah, I mean, the thing with Alabama is all they do is go out and just dominate Illinois. Chris is in the comments. He's giving us the woo babies and the O's, like Carlos and Eli were doing about Mississippi State, about Alabama. And, of course, we all think this about Alabama. We're like, still, I think at their best, in my opinion, they're probably still the best team. That's just my honest opinion. We said that coming into the season. But right now, I like to rank my teams by defense. And so, Alabama defensively, just not quite there on the Chris Lee scale yet in terms of the efficiency. I kid. But Alabama's going to play Houston tomorrow night.
Yeah.
If Alabama beats Houston, and let's say Auburn, Kentucky, Tennessee, who we all know are the top 3 teams in some order right now, do their thing still, right? Then what do we do with Alabama? Then we're going to have a really tough ranking next week because there's some big games. Auburn's playing Iowa State tonight, which we'll preview quickly at the end. But, man, this is where the madness begins. If Alabama is the 4th best team in our rankings, they're a top 10 team, in my opinion. So that tells me you got 4 top 10 teams in the SEC right now. That's my honest opinion. I don't care what the AP poll says. I don't care what any other poll says. What I've seen, I see 4 top 10 teams. Tremendous for the league.
Chris, he was poking at you a little bit. Any? No, I'm just used to it at this point.
Look, they don't have young blood yet. I mean, it's immaterial, guys, because if Alabama's the team we think they are, they're going to move up. But they don't have one of their key guys yet. Stevenson's not shooting. They haven't been as impressive in some games as we thought, although they looked great against Illinois the other night with nothing from Sears, which should scare the pants off people. But I don't think this is as much about Alabama as it is about the way the 3 teams ahead of Alabama are playing. And that's the thing. This is not a no-context ranking.
I was just going to say that. I think this says more about the SEC than it does Alabama. I think we all agree Alabama's a top 10 national team. Do any of you guys disagree with that?
No, of course not.
Okay, exactly. So that just, I mean, Blake, you've been doing this for probably longer than, I don't know how long. But
I was power ranking teams in 2016 when there were like, here's 1, 2, and 3, and everybody else is looking ahead to baseball season. But continue your question.
I was just gonna say, like, how crazy is this to see the league with a genuine, not even exaggeration, like, oh, it could be top 10, like 4 top 10 teams.
Hey, can I?
They're 4 top 10.
Get a sidebar for a minute. The way, if you look at the Ken Palm ratings in conferences, the way the SEC is starting to separate from the Big 12 and the Big 10 and is just kind of lapped the ACC is, I mean, it's amazing. That you look at the conference ratings right now there, And I think that tells you, like, if your question is, why is my team getting the disrespect that you are giving it? The answer is that's not what's going on. The answer is look at everybody else.
Yeah. Well, the answer is also, if you watch this full 35 minutes so far, who have we disrespected? In terms of our description of the team, not the ranking, the description of the team, no one has been disrespected because, like I said, I don't think there's a terrible team in the SEC.
That's the thing.
At all. In recent years, guess what? I would have said, you know what? There are a couple bad teams. Like, these teams stink. They stink from the bat. They're terrible. They're not real good right now. They got to get better. But about everyone else, I mean, come on. Like, this year, I don't think there's a single team. We mentioned South Carolina is the only team that has dropped a game at home like that against North Florida that you're like, oh, that was not great. But no one else, knock on wood, folks, do it. No one else to this point has done that. I hesitate to say that, knowing that my Missouri Tigers are getting ready to play. Who do they play? I forgot.
Missouri?
Lindenwood is coming up soon. But I just,
the Lions.
That's why we're not disrespecting any teams. And if you also, you're not going to believe this, Chris, I actually went back in KenPom. The SEC right now, I put in the work this morning. The SEC has the third highest KenPom conference rating as of right now, as it stands. We've got a long way to go. It's like the third highest of the past 7 or 8 seasons, 9 seasons, something like that. So that's how good the start has been. But the games get tougher. Starting this week, that number is going to struggle to survive, I think, that high. But for now, enjoy it because Feast Week is here. And so there you go.
Okay, we await.
Oh, boy.
Rank number 3. It is none other than the Cats. Oh, man. Oh, man.
Ooh, boy.
Someone else better start because I don't want to.
Hold on. Before we do that, Auburn fan, you calm down there with your comment. Blake is slowly morphing into Chris.
I like
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. All right.
No, the Cats. I'll start. Who? Come on. I know we're going to get a lot of slack, but I'll tell you what. There's 2 other teams in this league that might be number 1 and number 2 in the entire nation right now. So this is not a bad ranking by any means. They've looked flawless. The offense has looked absolutely flawless. Jackson State, I just felt bad for them out there. It should have been a running clock after the first 10 minutes. I don't have a bad thing to say.
Oh, these comments are tremendous. Bev.
Get them.
I bet Chris did this blasphemy. You're right, Bev. Absolutely. Chris 100% did this. Blame it on Big Blue, the ultimate swan. Big Blue Nation won't stand for this. I won't either. I stand with Big Blue Nation, okay? Until I change my mind.
Pandering.
So, SEC football. I knew that hurt Blake when he pushed that button. Oh, boy. Anyways, all right, continue. We have our fun here.
Nothing else to say. They looked amazing. I don't know what you want me to say.
I believe I ranked Kentucky exactly where the crowd ranked Kentucky. I'll rest my case.
All right, so the thing with Kentucky is they're tremendous. Yeah, I mean, we talked about Kentucky, offensively. This is where we have our phone in the rankings, but let's actually talk about the teams. I mean, my goodness. They're just putting up points. They're an offensive juggernaut. They're playing at one of the fastest tempos in the country. One of the most entertaining teams, maybe in the history of the sport. The Wildcats are doing their thing right now. And, I mean, they get a game against Western Kentucky on, what is that, tomorrow? They play tomorrow?
Tomorrow.
You talk about entertainment value, folks. Keep in mind Western Kentucky, they get up and down the floor. I don't know how good they are in terms of they're 3-2. They lost games to Wichita State, Grand Canyon. They beat Lipscomb. If you look at the common scores, they beat Lipscomb by 5, beat Jackson State by 17. So Kentucky did a little bit more than that. But this game, Kentucky could put up. I mean, offensively, there's going to be a lot of possessions in this game tomorrow. Watch it because this thing could be up and down, lots of points potentially on the board. So I will say that just if you're looking for something to jump into this week. That should be a fun game. But the Cats, come on, top 10 team in America, top 10 team in the world, the planet, the universe. Rank them anywhere you want. I've seen the Cats. I know what they're made of. They're clawing their way to that number 1 ranking. They'll get there. They'll get there, folks. All right.
Moving on.
Well, let's just move on right here.
Oh, there
Robert's
we go.
got a $1.99 super chat.
Nice.
All right. So he asks, how do you give Tennessee the edge over Kentucky? So let's go ahead and pull up number 2, Max. I think most people know that it's the Vols.
There we go.
So there you go. There you have it.
How do you put them above Kentucky? It's
Max,
not
can you just pull up the season scoreboard on Tennessee? I mean, I think that's your answer.
Well, their body of work?
Yes.
Well, yeah, I was good. It's not by much, but they played Louisville. They didn't trail for 1 second. They played Baylor. They again didn't trail for 1 second. I mean, these guys have dominated. So has Kentucky. I know Duke is like they didn't dominate Duke, but no one's going to dominate Duke. Still won the game, but I mean, Tennessee has just looked like an absolute machine. So I gave them the slight edge because they have the 2 top 60 wins and didn't trail for a single second in the game. Didn't even look like they're walking the park for them so far. They haven't even been tested.
Yeah, if all you saw of the Baylor game was the final score, it was never that close until the end.
I crushed them the whole time.
Yeah.
Same with Virginia. We're forgetting about Virginia too.
Well, they didn't crush them the whole time. That was like a 2 or 3 point game at halftime, but once the second half started, that was over. And Virginia can make anybody ugly for a half.
Yeah, but still, they won. They were up by like 26 points at one time. Blake, you've been awfully quiet over here.
Yes, he has.
Well, I have because I've been looking at the comments.
I
look at the comments, and some of them are just great because it's so funny because you definitely get some new people that jump in and they don't kind of get how we like to play up certain teams week to week. How we all pick our favorites here until we decide to pick another team as our favorite. We never change our opinion on that. But so Josh was going to give us a $2 super chat here and say that his reasoning is because Tennessee's better. I won't read the last part of that. We don't want to throw jabs at people here. Joseph's going to weigh in and say, with $10, we appreciate that, Joseph. Ooh. Nice for the $10 super chat here. Because Tennessee has a better roster. So he's saying Tennessee has a better roster in Kentucky. That's his reasoning here for the super chat. So there you go. Thoughts on that. Look, the Vols. All right. Let me see here. How do I want to put this? Tennessee's fantastic. They're really good. I'm just going to give you the same spill that I gave you on Kentucky and just tell you why I think Tennessee is really good too. Because, look, we can't sit here and act like the Baylor game didn't happen. And I think that is very important, right? And people can say, and Max was even bringing this up about Baylor before we started recording here.
Yeah.
Who knows, right? They lost by 38 to the Zags. They got blown out against Tennessee. They beat St. John's in double overtime. They beat Arkansas, who Chris said, reasons to be, maybe a little down on right now. So, what is Baylor? I don't know. And I think that's a tough one. But you also can't take away the performance itself. And, Tennessee didn't go out and beat, I don't even want to insert the team's name, right? They didn't beat a middle-of-the-road mid-major team by that number. And, again, 15 is misleading. It was just domination from Tennessee. And I also think, some people would probably say, well, sometimes these tournaments or classics or whatever, they're hard to necessarily take a ton away from because of the game schedule and the flow and those kind of things. You just don't know sometimes how teams adapt to the next day and, playing different styles and those kind of things. But we can't look at that Tennessee-Baylor game and not just be impressed with the Vols. And we mentioned Chaz Lanier. We did the reaction show. If that guy is shooting the ball the way he's shooting it right now, that was the element we were curious about with Tennessee. And, man, if he's going to be like that and they're one of the best offensive and defensive teams in the country, then they're in great shape. So I think that's what it comes down to. Like I said, I truly believe you could take these top 4 teams right now. And some people may even think we're disrespecting Florida in that scenario. I think you could take these top 4 teams and give me an argument as to why all 4 of them have a reason to be the best team in the SEC, which means they're also probably one of the best teams in the country. But the thing is, I think they're all four of the best teams in the country right now. And we'll see, who slides, because it'll happen. Like, I don't know that all four are going to be able to sustain this the rest of the season, right? They're going to play each other. Games are going to get lost. But for now, I think Tennessee is a well-oiled machine. They are much further along than maybe I thought they would be offensively for sure this earlier in the season, because we just did not know without Dalton Connect. But they've been great. They've shut people down defensively just like we thought. So we have our fun here. I have my fun playing up Kentucky and everybody. But come on. Tennessee has been ridiculous to this point. Let's not kid ourselves. So,
and they haven't had Cam Carr. He's been out. Yep. They haven't had JP Estrella. He's been out. And then we've had 10 minutes and 12 minutes of getting Dubar just acclimated. So they're not even at full strength, not even close. And they're doing this good. Scary, scary, scary. JP's done for the season?
He had an Estrella note earlier. I didn't know if you caught that, so I don't know if he was kidding or being serious.
Darn it.
But, I mean, I don't think that changes much with them. I mean,
I just feel bad for the guy.
Well, I do too. Anyway.
Darn it. Well, hey, that means it's more Cade Phillips season. There we go. Cade?
Who's playing a lot more.
There we go. Step right on up, Cade. That's what we like to see.
All right. Number one.
All righty. No surprise. Oh, we didn't put the Fighting Tigers. We didn't put the Auburn Fighting Tigers. Darn it. But
they haven't fought anyone.
Chris, this is your team. You've adopted Auburn. So your thoughts.
Well, look, they didn't play in a week, but they've only played 4 times. They've been impressive every time out. Got the best win in the country, beating Houston sort of on the road in Houston. And I still go back to that Vermont game. If you watch that one in the opener, they're just scary. You really, I think we had to keep him here at 1. Was that unanimous, by the way?
It was.
It was.
Again, that's the thing, right? It's just, what reason did we have to move Auburn down? Like, and it's like, well, they didn't play, but I mean, here's the thing, right? We talk about movement in the rankings, Max. Auburn kicks off Maui tonight, and they play Iowa State. If Auburn were to go through and win this tournament, knowing the teams they could play, I don't know that Auburn's going to get dethroned at number 1. If you're looking for suspense, the rest of non-conference play, I don't know that it happens. I think that they're going to just stay right there, because this tournament, they've got some big-time potential games. But it starts with game 1 against Iowa State, right? And so that's not an easy team to play against, based on how they play. But I think we'll see, right? And I just look at this, and they've got the best win of the season so far against Houston, if you just look at it from the numbers. And so, but Maui begins, and Auburn is the team with the most to lose at this point because they're at number 1. So they have nowhere to go but down. But they also got a lot to gain here, Max, if they were to roll through this tournament the next several days.
Yeah, I mean, when you're even talking on a national scale, I mean, Auburn can really put their hand, put the boot down and squash the bug here after beating 2 of the Big 12's best. I mean, I know that not Kansas, but Iowa State and Houston, especially when you're talking about the style of play that Houston and Iowa State play, very, very similar, physical, very good guard defenders. And that's kind of last year. You were with us last year when we were talking about Auburn down the stretch when Auburn was still very good. That was our concern, was the guards and late game situations, who's handling the ball and everything. Well, hey, Tahad stepped up big time against Houston, and now you're going to get a very similar look. I think Taman Lipsey for Iowa State may be the best guard defender in the Big 12 now that Jamal Shed is gone. So you're getting another great test. I mean, if they lose, though, is it really that much of a knock to lose to Iowa State on a neutral floor? I mean, I know we're talking about in the concept of power rankings right now, but I think they're in a great spot. I know they've got a lot to lose because they have that early win against Houston, so they got the target on their back, but I don't know. They got a lot of opportunities, and they're not going to really fall too much in the national rankings if they do against these teams.
Okay.
Parting
quick
thoughts
on Iowa State real quick, Max, then we got to get to some comments before we hop off.
Yeah, Iowa State, their opponents. They've beaten the Delta Devils. Gosh,
Of course they have.
Keep
I was
making their
waiting for
way
you to
in
bring that
here.
up. Yeah.
Yep, they've played the Delta Devils, Kansas City, and IU Indy. Those three things have something in common. They have not beat a Division I opponent this year. Iowa State's basically had 3 scrimmages. This is their first game of the season. I now don't put too much into that. This team has a lot. They're bringing back a lot from last year. The entire backcourt was here last year. And they got Momcilovic. They got Jefferson from St. Mary's. But the 5 spot, I think, is where Auburn is really going to have an advantage. No more Robert Jones. No more Hassan Ward for Iowa State, who did a lot there over the past few years. So going to be looking for that domination down low. That's what Auburn's going to need to win this one.
Yeah, you just never know about these neutral court games, but I think this is a good spot for Auburn. Because like you said, Iowa State simply has not played anyone to this point. And I think Auburn, having already found a way to win the game against Houston, now you're playing a team that, defensively, that's kind of their forte, right? So you kind of know, given the fact how you played against a team like Houston, Iowa State's kind of similar in that regard. So I think that's good for Auburn heading into this one. But it's the Maui Invitational. You never know. So should be a great game. I mean, it really should be. So tremendous game, I think.
If you haven't seen Lipsy, you probably have. He's been there for a while, but Pettiford, Denver Jones, they're going to have their work cut out from trying to bring the ball up against Lipsy the whole game.
Yeah. Shout out for the 199 super chat here as well. We appreciate all the super chats, guys. We know all of you don't agree with our rankings this week, but I'm glad we did them live. I think it was fun. So it's a good call on Max Barr's part to do them live. So
there we go. You know that video, F it, we'll do it live.
Yeah, why not?
News
right?
Anchor. I'll write it and do it live.
To Mother Carol, too. $5 super chat from Mother Carol.
Nice.
She wants to add a game of the week to the power rankings. All right, quick game of the week.
From this past week?
Oh, yeah, wait a second.
That's a
great question. I don't know.
Let's do both.
I don't know. So, all right.
Game of the week from this past week. What was your
LSU,
most entertaining?
UCF.
That was the most entertaining.
All right, upcoming week.
What are you looking forward to the most?
Gosh.
Alabama.
Mine has got to be Alabama, Houston.
Yeah.
Got to be Alabama, Houston. Houston's going to want their lick back on the SEC. Alabama is tired of this early season disrespect after dropping to Purdue. Man, that's going to be a good one.
But, I mean, keep in mind, too, there are also games that we just don't know that are even going to be played yet that we could say are games of the week, right? Like matchups based on tournament wins and such. So, But also, Evan, prediction game for the Auburn, or prediction video, it's just the way this schedule has fallen. Like, we just did not get a chance to do the Auburn-Iowa State prediction video. But I don't know. Like, I can't even tell you how our prediction schedule is going to fall this week. We will be doing one for Alabama-Houston. It's not preferential treatment, folks. It's just the way the schedule fell. We didn't get a chance to do it this weekend for Auburn-Iowa State, who played tonight. But we are going to try to get an Alabama-Houston one up. They play tomorrow night. We're going to try to do that this afternoon. And then we'll just kind of have to, it's Thanksgiving week, all that. We'll try to get some prediction videos in, some quick thoughts on the bigger games that take place this week. Max, we may try to add those in somewhere, but again, just cut us some slack. It's a big football week too, so keep that in mind. There's a lot going on over here. So we'll do our best, but we'll get into probably more of a rhythm of the prediction videos probably starting next week. You'll start to see the normal rotation you're used to with those. So,
Mother Carol says from the past week, the most impressive win from the past week. Most impressive win is different than most entertaining.
I would say Baylor.
Well, I was going to say most impressive for me personally. It might be just recency bias, but Georgia beating St. John's. I mean, for that program and for Mike White, I mean, I put out a tweet. I know we don't care about Ken Palm right now, but this is the highest Georgia's been since 2017 as a program. Mm-hmm. I mean, this is massive for them. Just me personally, I thought that was really impressive. I just watched it yesterday, so it's in the back of my head. But
yeah. All right, there you go, guys. Hey, thanks for joining in for the first ever live power rankings we did here.
Just keep doing this.
Appreciate you watching.
Yeah. Enjoyed it. I'm going to get the caffeine. I've got 11 football preview videos to do this week, plus the power rankings. Spoiler, I'm not going to do all 12 of those today, in addition to this one. But
you gonna do football power rankings live, Chris? No, don't do that.
Sure, why not?
At this point, no one cares. I mean, I'm sorry. You probably know where football teams stand at this point. That's like, it's so different.
No,
right?
I don't. That's the problem.
Well,
yeah.
But I think at this point in the season, you have a much bigger,
right.
There's
a body of work.
Yes, with basketball, it's like, man, who knows? So,
yeah. Sorry we disappointed you all, judging from the comments.
That's true.
I mean,
everyone but Auburn fans.
That was the most predictable thing in the history of the channel, was it not?
Yeah, I think that again, only Auburn fans were going to be happy. Well, Mississippi State fans, I thought they were happy until Mississippi State fan jumped in and said that Max betrayed them. So
I know. You wanted me to give some love to the SMU win. Big win over the Mustangs.
Oh, okay,
big win.
Right. Yeah.
big win over the Stangs. Okay. Hail State's looking good.
In all seriousness, this is fun, man. The league has never been this good.
Yep.
The basketball's never been more interesting. The decisions have never been harder, and we're here for it. Got tons of football stuff coming up. We've got how many live streams are we doing with basketball this week? To be determined.
Every day, but Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
TBD.
Thanksgiving's probably the only day you won't get a live stream. But who knows? Yep. You never know. When Max Barr and I get a little turkey, we get a little, little sides. You never know. We may decide we're going to go live. You just never know.
Fire it up.
Yeah. I'll be on using sign language at that point with my voice, but yeah, looking forward to it. All seriousness, thank you to everybody in the chat who watched. We have a lot of fun. I think you guys know that by now. We love you guys. We have fun with even your criticisms. We have fun with. So this is a fun time to be alive and an SEC basketball fan, which we are. Also, football fans, got plenty of that coming up today. And we even do I don't know if we'll be doing a baseball show this week, but we do those most weeks. We've been unpacking some scrimmage stuff. Best way to get all that, hit that subscribe button. And that's free. And hit the notifications enabling button. So when we come out with videos, when they're up. All right, for Blake Lovell and Max Barr, I'm Chris Lee. Thanks for watching Southeastern 16 presented by BetOnline.